Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mindful Moods and Mental Grooves, an educational wellness experience focusing on mental health and well being. On this episode, I am joined by Mike Hopkins, President and CEO of the Children's Service Center of Pennsylvania, as well as affiliates, the Robinson Counseling Center and Conyngham Primary Healthcare Center. As an integrated healthcare system and community organization, their goal is to provide and promote a compassionate quality service and development opportunities that enhances the well-being of children, adolescents, adults, families, community members, and their employees. Mike, thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate the invite. Thank you.
I would like to start talking a little bit about your background, from what inspired you to get into the field of mental health and what led you to up and running an organization of over 560 employees and serving over 13,000 clients. As a younger you, what made you decide that you wanted to pursue the field of mental health?
I'm not sure it pursued me as much as, I pursued it as much as it pursued me. It was at a psychology, a double major in college. And so I did psychology was my second major. And I found myself really enjoying those classes. And I think that was probably what got me thinking a little bit about it. I was at a private engineering school, and I took psychology classes because they were easier than the engineering classes I was in, and so those were my electives. And before I knew it, after 3 years or so, I wasn't too far away from a psychology second
Oh,
degree,
wow.
and so that got me thinking. Wait a minute, is it because they're easy, or is they're easy because I like it? And I think I came to the conclusion that they were easier because I liked it so much. And so that's really what got me into psychology and that part of it in the beginning. But I'll go back a couple years before that even. I remember I remember going to a group home up in Potsdam, New York, and thinking, I can't believe the work that these staff do and how incredible it was, just to see the skills of those individuals. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I could do this, and that was when I was 20 years old, and now at 63, 43 years later, here I am. So, and that's all I've done all my life is nonprofit, behavioral health, mental health services, foster care, adoption, all those different things. So yeah, I'm not sure how I got here, to be honest with you. Long answer, I'm not sure how I got here. I just know I love doing what I'm doing, and I can't picture doing anything but this for the rest of my career.
I mean, you've established a very awesome career so far, and you want to continue doing that. What if I was to say, what does mental health mean to you at this point in your career, or even when you first started out? If I was to say, Mike, what does mental health mean to you? What would you say?
I think there's a couple answers to that, and it depends on the perspective where you're coming from. So if you're coming from a client perspective where I'm having problems and I need help, um, it's the ability to have the wherewithal to put the people in front of those individuals that can help them. So there's different trauma they've experienced. There's different challenges, abuse, neglect, whatever it is. They've had these challenges. So from their perspective, it's great to be able to have an array of services that you can put out in front of them and say, let me help you. Let's see how I can get you what you need to have. From the administrative perspective, it's surrounding yourself with the best people you can possibly find that can play that role for those clients. So, on the client side, give me options because I'm not exactly sure what I need, what I want, what's going to help me. On the administrative side, it's find the best people you can, give them the direction they need, but get the heck out of the way and let them do their job. And so it's kind of, I think that's the balance that we try to strike is have a full array of services, have a one-stop shop, make it as easy as possible on the individuals who need the help. Most of the individuals we help have social determinants of health challenges around transportation and childcare and food and all those things that get in the way of them getting the help they need. Our job is to try to take all those barriers away and make it an environment where they can get those needs met. And the second part of that is let's find the right people to do that work.
Absolutely, and I think that you guys have done a fantastic job in meeting literally everything that you said. It really does sound like a one-stop shop for any client with any type of need that they have to be able to come in here and get the services or help that they need. It's just amazing. Talking back just a little bit to where you first started, did you think that at any point the path you were laying out maybe wasn't the right one for you? I know you said you kind of started in engineering and then transitioned over once you saw that you were kind of showing a little bit more interest in it. But at any point when you made that transition over, did you say like, this really isn't for me? Maybe and if that did, what was your motivation to continue staying on that path that you laid out?
Yeah, I'm not sure there ever was a time when I said this isn't for me. I think there was times when you're thinking, okay, I can't pay the bills because I'm making, I think I started at 10,200 a year or something. I remember when I got up to 13,000 a year, that was huge, and I could actually pay my bills. I used to go to the grocery store once a month because I only got paid once a month. I would buy a lobster tail for dinner and have lobster once a month when I was up to like 13,000 a year. And so after a while of doing, and then it's like ramen noodles the rest of the time. But after that, it was like, yeah, I think I could probably make this work, And but yeah, never once did I think that this wasn't the right thing for me to be doing. But I think you think differently at 25, 26 than you do at 36 and 46 and 56, and kids become, the kids start entering the picture, and now grandkids entering the picture, and it's but never was there a time where I thought this wasn't the right thing to be doing. I love doing it. I love getting up every morning. I love coming to work. So
That's great. Just really, really quick back to what you said. You were only getting paid once a month.
Yeah, once a month. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And we had to have. I remember we had to have $1 million coverage, umbrella coverage on our car because we transported foster kids and all that. So we needed $1 million umbrella coverage. And I'm thinking,
goodness.
that's like half my check, It's gone back then. So yeah, it was kind of it was tough, and it's still tough. I mean, people, staff that we have deserve a lot more money than they're making. It's a lot better than it was back then, but that was 40 years ago. So inflation has its place,
Sure.
but I think it's the people that do some amazing work are not compensated as well as they need to be. But again, I think everybody does the best they can to make sure that you can do other things for them, like we do around free healthcare and that kind of stuff. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point, but we try to sweeten the pot as much as we can, so it's not all about the salary or the hourly wage you're getting, but there's other benefits that kind of offset some of that. Not getting as much as I could, but I don't have these expenses on this side either.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And just to transition kind of into the Children's Service Center itself, the organization that you oversee, it's an organization that's been around since the late 1800s. Can you tell me a bit about the history of the organization and how it started?
Yeah, 1862, Civil War's going on. There's men in the local community here in Wilkes-Barre go to fight in the Civil War. Some of them don't come back because of the war, and so the moms and are kind of fending for themselves to make ends meet, to put food on the table, to put a roof over the kids' heads, that kind of stuff. And a lot of kids just ended up out in the street. So we had a group of ladies got together and formed the nonprofit Home for Friendless Children, which was in 1862. And from that kind of evolved into, over the next 20, 30 years, realized that the kids did have friends. So the name changed from the Home for Friendless Children to the Children's Home, which also became the first psychiatric facility in the United States, where they actually recognized that the kids had mental health needs. So if you think about it, the trauma that our kids deal with today, father goes to fight in a war, father doesn't come back, traumatic experience.
Absolutely.
So yeah, they weren't friendless. They had some traumatic issues that they needed help with, and so credit to the administration back then, where they recognized that, brought in psychiatry support. We have newspaper clippings of people coming from New Zealand and Australia and all these different places to see what was going on at our campus in Wilkes-Barre. And so I think that's kind of cool to think about that history. The 30s became Children's Service Center, so it's kind of an unbroken chain all the way from 1862 through today of Home for Friendless Children, Children's Home, Children's Service Center. Children's Service Center kind of morphed into Robinson Counseling Center under that umbrella, and the Conyngham Primary Healthcare Center under the Children's Service Center umbrella. So, today we offer probably one of the widest array of services for all ages now in the Commonwealth, which is kind of a neat to think about, going back to the Civil War, how it all got started to where we are today. Today we're serving over 13,000, closing in on 14,000 individuals come here for help. It's Children's Service Center, but we serve more adults than kids now.
It's just amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I think 2 years ago was the first time that we actually had more adults than kids on our caseloads, which is Yeah, which is, I think it's predictable that that was going to happen. If you think about the number of individuals that are between the ages of 0 and 18 versus 18 to 80, there's a lot more people in that older group. So it only makes sense that we're going to probably grow into that space, and we have, and I'm incredibly humbled by the work that our staff are doing. You don't have this growth because you're doing something wrong. You got a lot of people doing something right, and we're getting people coming. We're doing an amazing amount of intakes every week. It's just I don't know when it's going to stop or when it's going to slow down, but um, I haven't seen anything like this, and so I think it speaks to the quality of the organization, the quality of the staff, but also speaks to the kind of the community need right now and the
Yeah.
trauma that's happening all around us, and so it's great that an organization that has this history is able to meet those needs.
It's fantastic. Just an amazing history of the organization. And I don't know if you know this, but when I was doing some research, they talk about the Home for Friendless Children in the hit show Boardwalk Empire that was on HBO.
I
I
did
don't know
not
if
know
you've
that.
ever watched the show. Steve Buscemi about
Yeah.
bootlegging Atlantic City in the early 1900s. It's a brief blip of a mention, but they mentioned the Home for Friendless Children, and I thought that was the coolest thing when I saw it in the episode. I was like, oh my gosh,
I wonder if it's the same one. I mean,
there is a
may have
couple of
been
them,
there
right?
may have been more than just us, but yeah.
Yes, yes,
I think it's also cool that we've been in the same site, so it's not like the orphanage isn't here anymore, but it's on the same property. There's a sign sitting over the top of it right now, and there's
Yeah.
a 115-year-old building right next to it that we renovated and completely gutted, and it looks brand new now. And then another building that's 6 years old attached to that building, and another building that's about a year old attached to that building. So the footprint is all right there, and it's kind of an interesting story when they were digging lines from the newest building out to the street to run line out. They came across this concrete structure that they didn't know what it was.
Oh wow,
It was the foundation for the orphanage,
oh wow,
and they actually gave me a little porcelain. It was probably an inch tall porcelain chair, looked like from a dollhouse.
oh my gosh,
That probably is 100 plus years old. It was probably one of the chairs that the kids were playing with back in the orphanage days. So it's kind of
yeah,
cool.
really cool to see like the old pictures and even the pictures now of the buildings that you guys have are just so eerily similar. It looks like you just kind of slapped a new coat of paint on it. Obviously, you did much more than that.
Yeah.
But it's just so cool to see like the history is kind of kept intact throughout the years. Just awesome.
Yeah, the campus looks like a Virginia kind of campus.
It really
You know,
does. Yeah.
In the summertime when the flowers in bloom and all that, it has a feel of a kind of a southern feel to it. And so we didn't want to have all the brick buildings that we have and then start plopping up these different kind of structures that don't match. We wanted everything just to look exactly like it should have from day one. And so everything fits and everything just kind of feels like it's all part. We don't have to put signs out. It's part of Children's Service Center.
And it's funny because for our listeners, or even for those that might be watching on video, you say campus, and everybody's probably thinking, well, what do you mean? Like, there's a college campus right up the street from your guys' campus. And I mean, we're talking almost the same size. Like, you guys literally have a campus. It's just,
Wilkes University has 100 and 200 block of South Franklin Street. We're in the 300 block of South Franklin, and we pretty much on one side of the street, there's a building on one end, a building on the other end. We own everything in between. Across the street, we own all but 3 buildings, I believe, on that side. So, I mean, it is a campus, and
It
there's
really is.
buildings plopped all over on that block. And there's some homes, some that we don't own, but people that own them know that when the time comes, they're probably going to talk to us about it.
Yeah.
So. And we have a great relationship with Wilkes, and we work closely with them, and it is a campus, and people that come here, once you see it, you realize, it is a campus. It has a college.
No,
feel
it,
to
it, it really is. It does have that college feel to it. It's big and spread out. It's beautiful landscaping, and it's a great little spot to visit for anybody that's in the northeastern PA area for sure.
And I don't think that should be lost on people, because if you're coming for services, you deserve the best.
Absolutely.
You deserve to go to a place that's well kept, that you can take pride in, that you're not embarrassed to go to. Mental health, there's still a stigma. It's a lot better than it was, but there's still a stigma associated with that. So our position is that anytime a client's coming into a building, they should take pride in what they're, where they're at.
Make them feel as comfortable as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it fits too with the staff. The staff should feel comfortable going to that place as well. They should take
Absolutely.
pride in where they're working, because if they do, then the outcomes are going to be a lot better for the clients. So the clients' outcomes are better because they're coming to just a physical plant that's beautiful, all state of the art, everything. Even though it's inside of a 110-year-old building, it's beautiful. And that's the kind of stuff that we take pride in. That staff should take pride in their physical plant that they're working in. Clients should take pride in where they're going for services.
It trickles all the way down
And
from
if you
top
do,
to bottom.
if you do that, you're going to have success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked about how you started in the field. We talked about the history of the organization. When you came in as CEO, what year did you come in to the organization as the CEO?
It'll be 15 years ago, so I think it was the end of 2008, I believe I came in, December of 2008.
What goals did you have in mind when coming into the organization? Did you have the mentality of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Or did you feel that there was changes that needed to be made? Or what was your mentality coming in when you first, got the position of CEO of the organization?
I think the biggest mistake you can make is to come in and say, okay, this isn't working. We need to change everything. That you're just alienating everybody without knowing what's going on in the culture and all that. But that being said, I was the third CEO. I was the fourth CEO in about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So there was a CEO who had been here a long time, Joe DeVizia, great guy. Then there was a short-term CEO, and then an interim CEO, and then me. So I was coming into an organization that if I'm a staff member in that environment, I'm like, how long is this guy going to stay? Because
they've already watched that turnover happen already.
The last two left within a few years. So why would we trust this guy? What's going to be different about him? That kind of stuff. So, and I respect that. I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, you should be asking those questions. So you don't come in just thinking, okay, I'm going to change everything. You got to learn the culture. You got to figure out what's happening and what the strengths are and what the challenges are. And I think the second board meeting I went to, we weren't going to make payroll. That's where the organization was at that point. We were struggling, and so that was just the reality of it. It's like come to the next meeting prepared with a list of 5% cut, 10% cut, and 20% cut in expenses. Well, 80% of your expenses are salaries. There's really little room to cut in other places. It's going to be people. That's not the way you want to start. That's really not a good way to say, hey, I'm here, you're gone. That's not a good way to go. So that was kind of the initial challenge, and we worked through that. And by we, it's a lot of the people I'm talking about are still here. It is pretty cool to see you got people in the organization for 40 plus years, and the executive team has been here, I think 10 years or more for most of us. So yeah, it was a challenge in the beginning, and it's still there's challenges every day.
Sure.
That doesn't go away, but we're just in a lot more of a positive position to do things now. We're not looking at making cuts and all that stuff. We're not worried about payroll. And we worry about payroll because our payroll now is $1 million every 2 weeks. So,
oh my gosh,
so if you think about, where we were, back 15, 16 years ago, we worry about it, but for different reasons now. It's just so much larger than it was back then. But it's still, I think the organization has come a long way, and it's not me. It's like I said before, you find the right people and give them kind of, find people that share a vision, that share the mission, and have a good understanding of where you want to go, and then get out of their way. Let them do it, and every once in a while people get kind of out of bounds, and you bring them back in bounds and say, okay, here's, start up again, and here we go, and get out of the way again, and so that's kind of what my job I see is just kind of steering the organization in a direction that everybody from the board on down feels like we should be doing. I mean, who's going to argue with creating a one-stop shop that meets a whole bevy of needs of your clients, from primary care to pharmaceutical to psychiatric to psychological to outpatient med management, I mean, all those things.
So many working parts.
Right. I mean, who's going to argue with it? That's not a bad thing to do.
Right. Absolutely.
That part's not the issue. It's getting the right people in place that can carry on that, and being able to pay the bills, and doing all those things. So I think that was kind of in the beginning, to go back to the beginning, it was there was a survival piece to that. And then after we made it through the survival piece, probably the next year, a year and a half, it was, okay, we really need a clear vision of what's important to us. So that's where we came up with the 4 pillars of growth and quality and customer service and financial performance. And we kind of use that as the easy to understand. If you grow your program, if you thrill your customers, if you can do it in a way of quality, and you can pay your bills, you're going to be in a good place. So we just kind of cut it down to
very easy to understand.
Here's the 4 things we're going to focus on, and everybody can kind of get around these 4 things. And all decisions that we were going to make, we're going to filter through those 4 things. And if we could check all 4 boxes, then we were going to do it. If we could only check 3, you don't do it. You only check 2, you don't do it, because you're going to run into problems. And a good example, we've had programs that were outstanding. Check the box for quality, check the box for customer service. We could grow it, but we're losing our shirt on it. It doesn't make sense to continue that, because sooner or later you're gonna end up closing it.
Yeah,
we've had other programs where we've made a great deal of money on the program, but the quality wasn't there, and the customers weren't all that thrilled with it. Well, don't do it, because it's going to blow up. So we really just try to find things that we can do around these 4 areas, that we can check these 4 boxes. That's usually a good indication that you're good to go.
So I wouldn't say it's so much like a trial and error for you guys. It's more like we need to check these 4 boxes before we even make it happen.
Right. So if you think about our long-range plan, strategic plan is all geared around those four areas.
Yeah.
And so we have goals in those 4 areas that guide the organization. When we get an opportunity, somebody, merger, acquisition, whatever, we run it through those 4. Can we do this or can't we? Property acquisitions fall into that category too. Does it make sense to do this? So how's it going to impact those 4 pillars? And so, everything kind of evolves around that. And so that was probably year 2 of me being here, was we implemented some of that new thinking around this. And I think that really helped us kind of move the culture along. And every year I stayed was a bonus and a bonus. So now people, 16 years, they're probably like, when's he leaving? Can he go? I mean, geez, so yeah, I mean, but that's how it was in the beginning, was, there was transition, a lot of transition. And so we needed to stabilize everything and get it to a more normal place, a safe place. And then, okay, let's figure out what we need to do.
I feel like we're just kind of working back and forth with each other, which is great, because you talk about transition, and I want to talk about transition for 160 years. You guys served only the children population. Mm-hmm. What made you guys want to open the door for serving adults?
Transition age youth, which is a really tough population to work with, because the child system doesn't really recognize the kids once they turn 18. That's the adult problem. And the adult system between 18 and 21 is kind of like, nah, they're still should be in the kid system. So there's that 18 to 21 age range that they're really, there's no home for them back then in our current system, or in our system back then. So what we decided to do was, we had kids transitioning out who wanted to stay with us. We knew their families, we knew them. We could continue to work with them. Even though we were working with kids only, a lot of our work, like family-based, is done with the family. Parent-child interaction therapy is done with the families. Case management is done with the families. The kids were always the identified client, but we were working constantly with the adults. So it wasn't a far stretch for us to say, why don't we just keep working with these kids in transition? So that's how we got started with our really in case management and some of the other services that we provided, outpatient therapy, and that was for those transition age youth. And again, fast forward to today, now we're serving more adults than we do kids. So, but that's how it all got started, was really working with that transition age and thinking, we shouldn't turn these individuals over to the adult system.
Well, back in the day,
they have to start
what was
from
happening?
Scratch. They have to tell their story again. They have to do all that all over again. Why put them through that trauma? Let's just keep them and keep working with them.
Yeah.
And get them to a more permanent situation for them.
So what was happening with those youth, like back in, you say that 18 to 21 range is kind of just like a hole, like a void that needed to be filled. But what was happening, not so much from your guys' perspective as an organization, but what were there any types of services that were offered like years ago, I guess you
Yeah.
could say, for that?
Yeah, I think they were offered, but we kind of just take them and just pass them on to the adult
Oh,
system.
I see. Yeah.
And so again, they're starting from scratch. They're telling their story all over again. The 3-4 years of history we had with
That
them
rapport
is,
you have
yeah, it's
is,
all
yeah.
gone. They're starting everything all over again, and it really wasn't fair to them. So that's kind of how we got started. And it was, we can probably do better working with them than the adult system can do working with them. And nothing against the adult system at the time. It was just that
Right.
we had that relationship with the client, with the parents, with their system, their support system. We knew it all. We had all that already. So why not just continue to work with them and get them to where they needed to be? And then that mushroomed into, now we have 7,000, adults that we're seeing.
That's great. It's amazing. It's amazing. Your organization probably has the widest array of services available in Pennsylvania. Is that fair to say?
I think so. And certainly on the kid side, and we're building that on the adult side. I think when you add the primary care piece to it, that's huge. When you have the pharmacy services through our relationship with Genoa, that's huge. And now getting into medically assisted treatment through the SUD program and through Conyngham primary health care, that's big. So, I think all these services are out there, but to have them all in one place, in one organization, you don't see that too often. I don't know of anybody that's doing the array of services that we have right now. I don't know anybody in the state doing that.
And I think when we talked, we've talked in the past about, how many counties in Pennsylvania that you guys kind of branch out to. Do you remember that number that we talked
Well,
about?
there's 67 counties in the state, and we probably have individuals coming from, or serve individuals from, I think it's 47,
That's
48,
amazing.
something like
Wow.
that. So again, the school-based team is, they're out, Shikellamy and Mount Carmel and Pottsville and Minersville and, North Schuylkill, all those different areas down in that region. We have teams in those schools. So again, that covers, there's 7, 8, 9 counties in that area. And
Yeah.
Wayne County, we're up in Wayne, and Wyoming County covers, 3, 4 more counties up there. So when you start pulling them all together around Luzerne, Lackawanna, Susquehanna, Wyoming, and all the surrounding counties, yeah,
You guys are just kind of branched out everywhere.
the autism program in Danville, it covers Montour, Columbia, Snyder Union, all those counties in that area. So yeah, when you start adding them up, it gets in the 40s pretty quick.
Wow, it's amazing. And for listeners that don't know, I mean, I guess your base of operations, I guess is fair to say, is Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, in that northeast region. But I mean, some of the places that you just mentioned, I mean, we're talking hours away from your real just central hub. I mean, it's just crazy to see how it's webbed out and kind of spread out all over Pennsylvania.
Yeah, which actually makes it a challenge because you want the individuals in Danville or some of the other school-based teams to feel like they're part of something. Because if they don't feel like they're part of something, then why work there,
Right.
So that is something we take a lot of pride in and a lot of time to make sure that everybody feels like they're part of something, and so that, if you want to call it the mothership in Wilkes-Barre, everybody wants to feel like they're part of something, and so we have to be careful to make sure that we're recognizing that there's people all over the place that are working for us, and we'll do town hall meetings out in Danville, and we make them around their supervisory meetings, and so that they don't have to have a special meeting. Oh, Mike's coming to town, so we got to stop doing what we're doing and be there for that. It's like, no, tell me when your supervisory meeting is going to be. You're already meeting. We'll
Kill
get
two
we'll
birds
get
with
we'll
one
get pizza,
stone.
salad, all that. We'll come and do our meetings, with you at your time. It's convenient for you. So it's those kind of things that we just have to always be aware of. That the success of the organization is not just in Wilkes-Barre. It happens everywhere, and everywhere that we are.
Which once again kind of leads me into what my next question was going to be. Like,
You should have told me what you're going to ask me. I might be able to lead you into the next.
what do you think, like right now, present day, what your biggest challenges are? I mean, you kind of already mentioned one. You guys are just so far and spread out. It's just trying to get the beacon out to everybody. But what other challenges do you see like present day as far as the growth of the organization and what it is now?
I think there's a couple challenges. Funding is always one.
Sure.
And when you're doing well financially, like through COVID, we did well. We took the position, if you remember, we took the position in the beginning of COVID that we were going to keep all of our staff whole. And we had no idea how we're going to pay for that because nobody was coming in for services. If you remember back in, early COVID days, everybody was on shutdown, all
Yeah.
that. But our thought was we're going to get through this, so we need to make sure our staff are taken care of so that they come through this. And when everything opens up again, we're ready to go. So we did that. And I think that was the right decision to make. Hindsight being 2020, it was the absolute right decision to make. We came through COVID strong. So financially, we were okay, and everything worked out. Thank God. Now we're out of COVID, and all that COVID money's gone, and reinvestment money's gone. All that stuff's gone now, and now you're back to our fee-for-service kind of model again, where we were pre-COVID, and now we have to figure out how we're going to manage in that environment, because we did a lot of stuff to support our staff, and a lot of that support carries on to this new world. Where the reimbursement model isn't quite the same as it was a few years ago. So we're going to have challenges around that we have to manage. So I think that's a part of it is, how do we do that going forward? And our answer to that is we're working on becoming a federally qualified health clinic, a lookalike status. And that would take, to start with, that'll take our primary care and some of our licensed clinicians to become part of this FQHC lookalike. And that is a different funding model, which is a little more enticing than the existing fee-for-service model. And eventually, the whole organization, where we can, will be morphed into that FQHC, which kind of takes us away from a funding model that is not sufficient right now to meet our needs, into a model that is cost-based. So at that point, your costs are your costs. You create a rate, you develop a rate that's going to cover your costs. That gets approved, and you move forward. So that's kind of like the biggest challenge I think we have right now is becoming an FQHC lookalike. Our application hopefully will be in by the end of the summer. We'll have an on-site visit hopefully by the end of the year, and that will begin the next transformation of the organization.
A lot of hoops that you have to jump through for that to make that happen, from that transition from one to the other.
I had 3 meetings today. Every Wednesday I have 3 meetings.
Oh
I have one on, there's another one going on right now that I'm not part of. There's probably 6, 7, 8 meetings a week.
Oh my goodness.
Different committees working on different parts of the application and getting us ready for it. And so yeah, there's a lot of man hours going into it to make it happen. But at the end of the day, that's going to give us the stability that we need from a reimbursement perspective to be able to, make ends meet at the end of all this. So I think that's a big part of it. Expansion in Tunkhannock, is important for us too in Wyoming County. So we're, I think that's another big piece. Is the staff in Wyoming County are doing great, too well, because we've outgrown the space that we have there. So we're going from a relatively small space into a 26,000 square foot space.
Yeah.
So getting the funding in place to support the purchase of that and the renovation of that, all that's another challenge. But again, it's all part of what we need to do, because the need is so great, and we can't have staff working out of places that they need space, they need to feel comfortable in where they're working. We don't have that right now, so we need to address that.
Just there's a lot going on. And
growth is important. It's one of the 4 pillars. It wouldn't be important if it wouldn't be one of the pillars if it wasn't important. But it's not everything.
Absolutely.
Again, growth alone is not good. You need to have the quality growth. You need to have the customer service piece of that. You need to be able to pay your bills. All of that has to work together. Growth for the sake of growth is nothing special. I mean, anybody can do that. Can you sustain it? 162 years, we can sustain it. If we couldn't sustain it, then that's a problem. But we will sustain it, and we will continue. And long after I'm gone, and it's going to continue. So we need to put the building blocks in place to allow that growth to happen, but do it in a way that's sustainable.
I know we kind of talked about, with the growth of the organization. Do you yourself, just a personal question, do you yourself find it hard to connect with everybody in the organization the larger that we grow and grow and grow?
Almost impossible. If you think about, we're at 570 staff right now. I don't know how one person can, in multiple locations, hours apart.
Sure.
So it's almost impossible. I attend every new employee orientation, which is a great way to see everybody when they come in the door.
Sure.
So that's kind of my launch point, is I get to see everybody in the beginning. But then they go off to all these different satellites, and then it becomes more difficult. So just sitting in a meeting earlier today, met somebody I'd met before, which is great. And so I mean, that's important. But we try to do the town hall meetings out in the field and try to get to see everybody. Even if you do 3 town halls in a day and you've got 30 people that you meet or see again, you may know 10 of them from just history, but then you got 20 others that I'm not going to remember their name. I can't remember breakfast yesterday, let alone people's names. So yeah, it makes it very, very challenging. But
I can
again,
imagine.
it's something important that you're seeing. I try to get out and try to be visible in the different programs and make sure everybody's doing okay and make sure they see me, that if they need anything, they know that they can come talk to me. And we say that in the end, in new employee orientation, the business card, here's my cell phone number. If you ever need anything, call me, text me, whatever. It doesn't matter.
There's
When
not
you're
many
late.
CEOs that will say, "Call my cell phone, text my cell phone." That well, maybe I shouldn't say that. There's not many. I'm sure it might be many CEOs that say that, but there's not many that would respond. You know, and
Yeah, and people do outreach to me, and I do get those texts or I do get those calls, and they move up the priority list immediately. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I get a text or an email from staff who say have this problem, this concern, that goes right to the top of the
Sure.
list, and that gets addressed immediately. Um, and that's how it has to be. And I'm sure CEOs do that, and that's important. But we do other stuff too. We do welcome cards. So when a new employee comes, I write out a personal card to them, and we put a gift, put my business card in it again, so they get a second one, and put a gift card in it. Just say thank you for joining the organization. I think that's important. But again, with 560 staff, with turnover and stuff,
Right.
that's a lot of cards we're doing.
Sure.
And in the holidays, we do, I do a personalized card for all the staff with a gift card in that as well. So again, 570 cards go out, personalized. And I know some staff after 15, 16 years, I know more staff better than other staff. So I can personalize those cards, which is good too. It makes it fun for me instead of just, have a great holiday, have a great holiday,
the
have a great
traditional,
holiday.
yeah, just
Yeah.
copy paste stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about someone likes NASCAR, or I could talk about the favorite sports team. I like picking on the Eagles when they're not winning. So some of those. So I mean, you can have some fun with
Sure.
it too, which makes it a little more enjoyable for me to do those as well. But again, there's that personal piece that you have to invest in, and if you don't, then I don't know why staff would invest in you if you can't invest in them.
Absolutely. And you talk about staff and trying to maintain that connection as much as possible in such a large organization. But I know that you guys are also doing some other things to ensure that you have the best staff possible. What are some of the things that you guys are doing as an organization to make sure that you are retaining those best staff?
Yeah, it's one thing to recruit staff and recruit the best staff. It's another thing to keep them. So we're doing things like tuition reimbursement, loan forgiveness program, free health care, leadership development. I mean, once you get quality people, you want to develop them into your future leaders. And so we have a whole leadership development program. I mean, those are 4 things off the top of my head that come to mind that I think are important to have. But it's also the same thing with those cards. There's just thanking them for being here and doing those kind of things. And retention is a 24/7 activity.
Sure.
Creating a great workspace is a part of retention. Having a sanctuary-based organization is part of retention. People feel safe being here. They feel like they're part of something. They feel like they can make that commitment.
Right.
I mean, all of that it's all part of retention. There isn't one thing. You don't send them $1,000 check every year and say thank you. They could, a lot of places could probably do that. It's the whole thing that you're trying to get, that culture that I want to be part of something that's making a difference, and I have a voice in it, and I want to be part of it, and I can develop my skills, and I can grow, and I can provide for my family, and all those things are going to lead to retention.
Has free healthcare always been a thing for you guys, or?
No, free healthcare started a couple of years. Yeah, I think we're in our second year now, maybe end of the first year, second year. No, it just became another opportunity that we spend $5.5 million on healthcare. The employees piece of that, again, this is last year's numbers. The employees piece of it was about 1.2 million. So when we put our insurance out for bid again, we asked the people responding, those organizations responding to our RFP, to say we need to save about 1.2 million. So figure out how you can do that for us. And we had 4 or 5 companies that responded, and only one got us to where we could see that savings. And so that's the one we went with, despite the fact that we had a long-term relationship with another provider who was fantastic, but it wasn't going to meet our financial needs. Again, go back to those 4 pillars.
Right.
It wasn't checking that box. So we wanted quality. We wanted our staff to be thrilled. And our organization is growing, so we need to have insurance that will grow with us. And we needed to hit the financial box. So this one company did that for us. And so it's still new. We're still figuring it out, and it seems to be working. But knock on wood, let's hope it continues. But so yeah, I mean that's something that I hope we can continue going forward, because it's a huge selling point. It's huge in retention to recruit somebody and say you're not going to have any healthcare premiums. Well, how many companies are doing that?
Not many, I would guess.
No. So you got to separate yourself. If you're going to recruit and retain, you got to separate yourself from others.
This has been a great conversation, and just I think 2 closing questions I want to ask you, just to kind of maybe just sum it all up, not just for the Children's Service Center in Pennsylvania, but for just really just anybody. What advice would you want to give to somebody interested in pursuing a career in mental health?
Run the other way. No, that's probably not the right answer. I think it's not necessarily career in mental health as much as it is find your passion. Like I said, I've been doing this for 40 years. I don't think I've gone to work one day. There hasn't been one day that I didn't want to go to work. Is it really work when you want to go somewhere?
Right.
That's like Aruba. I always want to go to Aruba. I love going to Aruba, but it's not, it's not a problem. I like going there. Same thing coming to Wilkes-Barre. Same thing going to Danville or Honesdale or Harrisburg for meetings, or DC or wherever. I mean, if you love doing it, you're going to be doing it for a long time. So if you're first getting started, and a lot of times you're 23, you don't know what you want to do. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay. You got to try some different things to see where your passion is going to be. This turned out to be my passion. I didn't think it was, when I was 23, I didn't think I'd be doing this for 40 years. I like doing it. Haven't stopped doing it, So I think you got to figure out what's important to you, and how you can make ends meet, and how you can have fun doing it. And, that's what you got to do. And so I think figure out what's important to you, and figure out, if you like doing something, try to find where you can do more of it.
Absolutely. I think probably the most important thing you said is that passion. It's like you have to have a passion, especially to be in this field. And if you can find that passion, and you have passion when you find it, and when you're in there, it makes every day feel like vacation.
Yeah. I remember back in 84, I think it was 1984. I'm driving. I was a caseworker, making that $10,000 a year. I had a Volkswagen Beetle convertible that I had bought my senior year in high school.
Nice.
And I had the cassette player. I actually had to pull out the 8-track, but I had the cassette on, and listening to a Grateful Dead cassette, probably from Cornell, I think it was, Barton Hall. And I remember driving out in the boonies, going to see a foster family and a kid, and I had the top down, and I'm driving, and sunny day, and I'm thinking, God, they're paying me to do this. This is incredible, And so that might have been the day that I was like, yeah, I could probably do this, And I was 23, 24, whatever it was. But yeah, I still remember that day. I could almost pick out where I was on the road that day.
Wow.
And that might have been the turning point where I said, yeah, this is maybe something I want to do.
Kind of like that light bulb for you almost.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. And the last question I want to ask you, Mike, for somebody that struggles with mental health, once again, not just in Pennsylvania, but just anywhere in the world, anybody that might be listening, anybody that might be watching, do you have any advice that you can give them?
Yeah, don't be afraid to get help. I mean, we talked about stigma earlier in the conversation, and I think it's gotten 100 times better than where it was, but still not to where it needs to be. People are still, they think there's something wrong with them. They think that this is their fault, those kind of things. And, the pendulum is almost swung like if you're in high school now and you don't have a therapist, there's something wrong with you, which Okay. I mean, that's positive because I think we're probably helping a ton of people that never
Absolutely.
got help before. I don't think it's gotten to the older, the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s yet. So I think that's what I would suggest is just seek out help and find the right place for you to get the help that you need because there's lots of people out there, whether it's an organization like ours or whether it's private providers, whoever it might be. There's a lot of really strong mental health providers right now, and don't see it as your problem. Don't see it as something that you did. There's a good chance that something might have happened to you that got you to this point. Find somebody that is trauma informed and can help you get through that.
It's fantastic. That's great. Mike, I just want to thank you one more time for coming in, sitting down, and talking with me. It was an amazing conversation, and hope we could do it again sometime.
I'm sure we will. I always enjoy it.